this was the retaining wall before the river was narrowed, the channel was narrowed, and all that land was reclaimed for parkland. So this was really the retaining wall that was put in 1918 when the Civic Center construction started. I want to point out, if you turn around, you see this giant gavel. This building was designed as a generic state office building in the early 1930s. It became the state Supreme Court and Judicial building in the early 2000s. And the artwork on the building, some of which we'll see today, really tells the history of the city and really of Ohio from 1933 perspective. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. But one of the things that the Chief Justice, Tom Moyer, and the building's named after him, wanted to do was change its image as an area where the judicial system for the judicial branch of government for Ohio is situated. So that giant gavel, they're reflecting pools at the north and south ends that are original to the building. And two local artists were commissioned. Andrew Scott, who now teaches at the Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, but he was teaching at Ohio State at the time, created the gavel. So when you go by, you know that looks like this might be a court of some kind in the reflecting pool. And we'll actually walk up. You can't see Malcolm Cochran, another local artist, professor at OSU. His is much more subtle. Both of those major commissions were actually funded through the Ohio Bar Association Foundation, as was some additional artwork in the building. But that's up in the Supreme Court Library, which is at the top of the building, which used to be a state library, Supreme Court Library. We could spend an hour and a half in that building. We don't have that much time, but if you ever want a complete tour, we'll take you on it. But what we're going to do, we're going to look at some of the artwork on the exterior of the building, walk up, and then we enter it from Front Street over there. Just to show you, almost every feature of this building has some art or some inscription or something, I would say, to reflect either the history of Ohio or some aspiration, generally for peace, for labor, for education, for a number of different things. One of the things I find fascinating about this building was built in the 1930s, and you see up there the Cataclysm of Nations. That was World War I. Wasn't called that because nobody knew. They couldn't imagine in the 30s that there would be a World War II and the same generation of people might fight in it. But also, if you look, it's a lot of it is a tribute. So it's kind of a mixed bag. But this building, we worked on the restoration project of this with the architects. At one point, we went around and looked at all the inscriptions. It was amazing how much was kind of baked into the design of the building. There were 10 artists from mostly Ohio, but not just Ohio, who were commissioned to create murals, metal, a decorative metal, murals, just a lot of different artists involved. So this is called Civic Center Drive. This is the Civic Center Drive entrance. We are not going in here, but this is a visitor's entrance when tour groups come. But I wanted to point this out because we will see the lobby on the other side of it. It is referred to as the Native American lobby. I understand now that's probably not how we ought to refer to it, but that is what it was designed to be. This is the second sculpture that was commissioned when it became the Supreme Court building. And this looks so simple. It's stone. It has words. This is a reflecting pool. And there was an incredible amount of time spent getting the height right. Because what happens when there's water in here, the water flows over this. So it's not like these pop up above the water. The whole idea is it's sometimes blurred. And these are all words that have to do with the idea of justice. And I will tell you, he submitted, I don't know, 25, 30 words to the Bar Association Foundation so they could approve the words that would go in there. So it was designed so you could see it from the buildings around it. And it looks kind of stark right now. It's really cool when there's snow and you see a little bit of it, but it's best seen when there's water. And he actually had them fill the pools so he could get it just a fraction of an inch below the water. And it really is quite, especially if you see it from up above, because the water flows, because these are all jets that push water out. So it's not a still reflecting pool. There's moving water in it. So this is just another example. We're going to go into the building now. I'm going to use my ID, and I don't think you'll have to pull out your IDs here. I think you might have to do it at the State House, but I'm going to kind of run ahead. Take your time. I know. I got permission to bring a group through to look at the concourse, the Native American lobby, and one of the hearing rooms. And they said we only had to have one ID. Oops. Just look again. You know, the other side was all about kind of war and I see this side as a little more aspirational, but you'll notice up here it represents some of the industries in Ohio: quarrying, fishing, and it goes petroleum. It goes along education, morality, and just some of the symbolism. Some of the they do include the arts. I'm happy, arts and science. Just more of detail in this building. And if you ever have time, do come back by yourself and look at it. You are able to go in anytime. You can even go in if you get here early and observe the Supreme Court in action, which would be interesting. But let's take a look at this plaza. A giant stainless steel gavel. And this is a reflecting pool also. So they actually look best when water's in them. But I think this really showed people that this was a different building than it had been before. There was actually a proposal back before it was decided to turn it into the Supreme Court, a proposal to take out all the reflecting pool, all the marble, and to put picnic tables in. It looked like a backyard deck. So thank God Tom Moyer had the good sense to just say, you're not messing with that building. That's going to be the Supreme Court. I wanted to point out Zanesville and Chillicothe were the two early capitals, temporary capitals of the state before Columbus was selected. I think actually why they picked Columbus was there was nothing here. And instead of competition among cities, it's almost dead center in the state. So geographically, it kind of worked. But I think the idea that they could just start from scratch was probably, and it was basically a real estate deal. They were given 10 acres and the guys across the river said, we'll build your first state building. So I think it just was an easy compromise.
Zanesville was named for Ebenezer Zane, who in 1796 slashed out a trail from Wheeling, what became Wheeling, Virginia, later West Virginia, down to Maysville, Kentucky on the Ohio River. It went in a big arc. It's called Zane's Trace. It's partly U.S. Route 22 now, Zanesville and down through southeastern Ohio. And Chillicothe is a restatement of the name of a indigenous settlement. And it was the first capital. There's a reproduction of the first Capitol building in downtown Chillicothe that's still in use. I forget how it's used, but it's
a newspaper office.
Newspaper office.
Yeah. And Chillicothe's in Ross County, which is where one of the sites where the National Historic Park is, that was part of that World Heritage designation. So it's a really significant area too.